What's up, crypto gang? Welcome back to another episode of Hack Crypto, where we hack our cryptocurrency and blockchain education. If you guys are brand new here, we do a small little giveaway at the beginning of every single episode. Today's winner is Black Magic 553. Thanks so much for commenting on the previous video, Black Magic. I just sent you some crypto. This next giveaway is going to be a little special. We're going to give away an NFT. It's going to be a surprise, but leave a comment and your Ethereum wallet address in the comment section on this video, and we will send out a winner on the next video. But on this episode, it's a very special guest here. I have Metakovan, who is the producer behind the bundle that is B20. He's also the fund Metapurse, and he's just an overall very humble human being. In the interview, you're going to hear him talk about a lot of different things, including treating the Beeple bundle like a movie, where once they knew that Beeple was the star of the movie, they rallied a bunch of amazing troops around to have a team of 27 people working on this event that was Metapalooza. Before we get into the interview, I wanted to make sure I give a shout out to all of the incredible partners, and a special shout out to my co-founder at Grow Your Base, John, who spent literally the majority of his holidays working on the token economics for the bundle. Voxel Architects, who did the amazing builds in Decentraland and Crypto Voxels. Whale Street, who worked on the smart contracts and user experience. Metacast Group for their amazing marketing. Andrew over there is fantastic on Twitter. Token Smart for providing the event expertise. They also do the Whip, which is an incredible event that we've spoken at multiple times, and they do a great job for all events in the metaverse. And then Paradox for amazing videos, and Blau, who did the music. And there's just so many people that were involved in this, but I really like to highlight the rockstar builders that made something so big happen. I'm really excited to be part of it. So it was really cool to be able to sit down with Metakovan and go through his background, learn more about him. I decided to do something a little bit artistic here with the interview itself. Metakovan is trying to kind of be anonymous at the moment in terms of his identity. So what I wanted to do for this interview was run some sequences here of the B20 collection and Beeple's artwork. And I wanted to make it a little artistic just because we are talking about, the metaverse. So without further ado, let's jump into my interview with Metakovan, the man behind Metapurse. What is up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode. I am joined here today with Metakovan. And Metakovan has started something called Metapurse, which is half a fund and a production house for NFTs and insanely cool projects. The most recent big deal of a project that rattled through the entire NFT space was the B20 collection. How's it going today, Metakovan?
Awesome. Thank you for having me, Steve. Thank you.
Yeah, definitely. I'm really excited about this because anyone that is involved in the NFT space right now witnessed, this historic event that happened, and it was playing around in there in Crypto Voxels, myself taking screenshots left and right. It was like a kid in a candy store. It was a beautiful event. Beautiful event.
It's so nice to hear that. Like that's what we were going for, like as an experience. So I'm very happy to hear you say that.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. So let's start with the basics, the beginning. Let's start with, what you can share about your crypto origin story. A lot of people are always curious how people get started, how they hear about it. Is it like a flyer? Is it walking down the street and a friend tells them? Everybody's always curious about that. So how did you get into the crypto space originally?
Sure. So for me, I think I didn't have any friends who spoke to me about Bitcoin, so it didn't come through the social network I had. So the idea of Bitcoin came to me because reached me because I was actually searching the internet back in 2013 when I was doing some option derivatives trading, and I was looking to move money from one of the brokers to another, and I was looking at, can I do it without a bank? And I think I accidentally typed, can I move money without a bank? And so Bitcoin came up, right? So I was like, wow, what is that? And I was thinking, okay, is Bitcoin something I can use to move money between brokerage accounts or something? And then yeah, this whole rabbit hole thing happens, right? So yeah, I got into it, and yeah, 2013. It feels like quite a long time, but it's been what, 7 years now, 8 years. Yeah,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
that's how I learned it.
Excellent. And so you initially kind of do this, we'll call it an accidental search. You fall into the rabbit hole that is
Mhm.
Bitcoin. And I think that there's kind of this layer of depth behind that initial rabbit hole of Bitcoin that everybody goes through. Everybody kind of learns about
Mm.
decentralization, they learn about blockchain, and your next step was towards Ethereum, right? You kind of
Yeah.
got into the door with Vitalik. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Actually, for me, I didn't understand the promise of Bitcoin or anything when I first learned about it. I'm a technologist, so I'm a coder, and I'm always looking for. I'm a guy who always looks for something, which is just so new that no one has tried it. So that if I could. If I could do something about it, and if it does become big, I'd be part of the early mover, right? So I always think about everything like that. Like I cannot really go into the old world and succeed. So when Bitcoin came up, I didn't understand decentralization. I didn't understand the politics of it. All I understood was it was something new and something that a lot of people did not know about, and it was on the internet. So I was thinking, okay, can I do something to earn this? I didn't have a, I didn't have any money back then, so I cannot buy bitcoins. Even though the first time I saw Bitcoin, it was around $100, but I could not buy it. So I thought, okay, why not do a service or something? And I started doing something on Bitcoin Talk, like being a middleman, a escrow for people who want to exchange tokens, etc. Back then it was just cryptocurrencies, right? Not no tokens. So
Mm-hmm.
I was doing that for a while, collecting those fees, and that became a service. So that's how I started. And when that started becoming big as a service, what I wanted to do was, I thought I would want more exposure, more exposure to people, so that I can form a team or something. So I tried doing that. Luckily, I ended up in Canada for a while, and that meant that I could network better and stuff. And the first a few meetups, the great thing that happened was I did get a team, but we went on to build some other product, and I also met the team which was building Ethereum, right? So very early 2014 Jan is when I saw the first draft of Ethereum, and the whole crowd, the Ethereum co-founding team. They were all there hanging out, and they didn't all know each other back then too, right? So it was just a meetup, a Bitcoin meetup in Toronto, where things started getting heated up, and that's how I started learning about Ethereum.
Very cool. Very
Yeah.
cool. And when you started that initial, learning process of Ethereum, what was, because this, I guess, what was the public debut of Ethereum? Was it 2016? Was when they really came out with, uh, or what was the actual debut? I know it
So
was.
you mean for the launch of the chain, is it?
Yes, yes,
Okay. I think it was more like 2015, the end of it, but
yeah.
they didn't have a wallet, so it was just CLI.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Very interesting. Because I
But
remember researching because I got into the space in 2013 and was really fascinated
okay.
because I studied economics and was obsessed with game theory and all aspects of economics. And when I saw Bitcoin, that led me into all these different altcoins. I think a lot of people can relate to that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Ethereum really opened up that door of this token kind of concept and token
Mhm.
economics, and it was such a fascinating um, concept. Immediately, it clicks with you. So,
Mhm.
fast forwarding a little bit, you meet at that Bitcoin meetup where everything happened back then.
Hmm.
All the cool kids were going to the Bitcoin meetups, and everybody was was talking about crypto. So you meet the team there, and you get involved with them. Do you get invested? Do you become an advisor? Do you get involved with the Ethereum team at all?
Yeah, like I was working on another project back then, so I had my own, like my time was filled with another project that was in Bitcoin too. So it was
Yeah.
not like something non-crypto. But the good part was because one of the Ethereum co-founders was my client, so he kept informing us, the whole team, about what was happening with Ethereum. And actually he was the person who encouraged me to put some of the bitcoins I had into Ethereum. So
Mm.
that was a good deal, I guess. I didn't put too much into it back then, because I was like, yeah, I was don't call myself a maximalist, but I was thinking, I don't know when this is going to launch. I had all the skepticism, right? Like that every Bitcoiner back then had about Ethereum. But like I was like, okay, let's take a little bit, like 5%, 10% of what I had back then, and I did invest. So it was, I got involved only as a contributor to the crowd sale, not as an advisor, not as part of the Ethereum team.
Wow. Wow. So just investing that early on in the
Mm.
crowd sale is a pretty monumental and life changing investment. I mean, now
Yeah.
it's pretty historic. like
Yep.
looking back at that, I think a lot of people that hear that and hear that story really can um, really can appreciate that exposure to risk that you took,
Mm,
because
mm,
everybody always talks about how, oh yeah, I should have bought Bitcoin
mm.
5 years ago and things like that, and they're the same people that are talking about it at the peak, and that they want to buy at the peak, and they're not willing to take that risk at the
Mm.
lows. So I appreciate
It's
that.
funny because when I got started with Bitcoin, and slowly as I earned my stash of Bitcoin,
Hmm.
I've never actually sold it into fiat, right? Like from that day on to this day, I've been just theorizing about how this is going to flow into the future, etc. But I've never actually come out of crypto and become a fiat person. So very recently, like a couple of years ago, is when I really started operating a proper bank account. That too because I had to move countries and stuff like that. But until then, I was like, yeah, I was just living on crypto, right? So I've been a crypto native for a while now. So that's also very interesting experience, if you ask me.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
that's actually. I had another question, but that's way more interesting than than my next question. How? Because I lived in San Francisco for 5 years, and I did meet people that were doing the
Hmm.
whole, buy a gift card and use that using crypto, and they were living entirely on Bitcoin. But
Hmm.
let's talk a little bit about how you did it. How did you spend a few years living
Sure.
entirely off of crypto?
It was funny. Initially, for a few months, actually, I had local Bitcoin and in Canada there was companies which would exchange your Bitcoin for cash also.
Hmm.
So I used to convert a little bit of Bitcoin for my expenses, etc. But then in June, July, there was a company called Shift, which now got acquired by Coinbase, which was the company. The founders were very good friends with me. They were making their own Visa card for crypto.
Hmm.
So you can deposit crypto, and it's like crypto.com today, right? Like you can deposit crypto, and you'll be able to swipe your card, and it will pay for your bagel. So I was their first user. And I was the guy who they would test their new features on. So I had a card which had no name on it, right? Like just a blank card. So everywhere I go, I'll be like, people will be so skeptical on me. They will be like, "Did you run? Like, is this a you know?" is this even a real card kind of experience for me? But yeah, it had crypto in it, right? So back then, Shift was just getting started, so they didn't even have a system where they could take my Bitcoin. So what used to happen was I used to swipe and do my expenses, and they used to send me, an Excel sheet of what all I had eaten that week, and they will ask me to send the Bitcoins to them. So it was, yeah. We
That's
did everything, man.
fantastic.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. Literally like a ledger of all of your meals, and then you would
Yeah, yeah,
settle
yeah.
up.
That's right, yeah. I was
That-
embarrassed a lot of times. I'll spend $1 on a bagel, and they'll be like, "I know they're judging me, right?" So,
That's incredible. Every was it weekly that they would have the spreadsheet, or would
yeah, yeah, yeah. It became better very quickly. So yeah, they had their system, and you could deposit, and they went on to become a very interesting company, and they got acquired by Coinbase too. So the cards, if you're signed up with Coinbase today and you apply for a card, that's the card you get today. So I'm happy to be there, to have been their first customer.
wow. Wow.
Yeah.
The nameless card, the first customer that
Mhm.
had to be fully in a judgment-free zone when they were going through all your
Yeah,
transactions.
definitely. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I was synonymous already, right? Yeah.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. So, what years would that have been that you were living entirely on crypto? Would that be like 2015-ish?
20, 2014, 2014, 2015. Yeah. Like starting 2014, I've just been on crypto. Even now, it's mostly, I live mostly on crypto, and whatever expenses I have to do for the real world, like say, I never owned even now I don't own a house, or I don't own a car. So I just live on the metaverse, right? It's,
Mm-hmm.
it's, I think it's a very interesting thought process to have. Be very light on assets, because it allows me to move around to different countries and stuff. I don't have to, I can just pack my bag and leave, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that comes from being asset light in the real world. But whenever I require some payments to be done, I usually have a bank account into which I convert my crypto into. And now there are so many cards, right? Like crypto.com and Wirex
Mm-hmm.
and a bunch of them. So it's become quite easy now.
Definitely. Definitely. Now,
Yeah.
everywhere Visa is accepted, people are swiping left and right, and they don't have to settle up at the end of the week, with a spreadsheet. That's
Yeah.
that is funny. So fast forwarding a little bit to NFT, when you ran into the first NFT, when that eye opener happened and kind of guided you
Mm,
into what is now the metaverse, what was that experience?
sure. So to give a bit of a mental model of mine here. So I'm a traveler. I travel, and I like to explore new cities, and I also like to understand the origins, and how a city becomes a city, kind of a story, right? So I've traveled a lot, but I also watch a lot of documentaries about them. So history and art has been very inspiring to me. So I also come from my own culture, where it's not like I'm not from North America. Obviously, I'm from the East. So where it's not like the popular culture of the world, right? So whenever I used to travel, I used to think, why is one culture more represented, or more accepted than the other cultures? And I would always find that funny. So I will look into history and try to understand how these soft powers and all these things uh, came to happen. And so instead of being angry at the world for how it is, you should just learn history, and understand that there's going to be another chance where history is going to repeat itself, or at least rhyme. So this time you can be part of it, right? And you can change the world the way you want, or at least guide it a little bit in the way you want. So that was my thesis, right, about crypto. So when I saw crypto, I was like, okay, maybe this is my chance to be part of a phenomenal change, and maybe I would not be the minority here, and it'll be nice to be that. And so when NFTs came out, my this whole thesis started playing out from Decentraland, because I didn't look at Decentraland as a, a game, or just, some NFTs that's going to go up in value or anything. I saw it as Greece. I saw it as Rome, right, where it's a city. It's a city where it's just getting started. No one is going to care about it, and that's how everything starts. But in 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, if there's going to be a metaverse, Decentraland is still not going to lose its charm, because it was the first city, the origin city, right? So there's always going to be some value to this. And for me personally, in terms of my own agenda, I was like, okay, yeah, this means that if I could capture part of this land here, which is an opportunity in front of my eyes, I could be I could be part of shaping the culture of how the new people that come into the metaverse are going to view the world as. And if metaverse becomes that more important, at least becomes as important as a city you would want to visit, that means that I should have some presence there, so that we can also present different cultural aspects, and not have a homogeneous single culture that shapes this new world. So once Decentraland, the land auction started happening, I didn't take too much of my funds back then into the mana auction, but I did put in a decent amount, and that means that I actually captured, like, in the auction, I bought around 1,300 parcels of land all around the map. So that gave me gave me the first real big purchase into NFTs. Until then, I had a few crypto kitties, etc. But the land auction was where I really started to become serious about it.
Got it. Got it. I love the
Yeah.
comparison to Rome, where since it was the first, there will always be like a romance to it. There will always be
Yeah.
that charm to knowing that it was the first, just like
Yeah. Yeah.
the Empire of Rome. I like that comparison
Yeah.
a lot.
People care about the best and also the first,
Yeah.
right? No one cares about the second, and the one that's a little, like, little less than the best. So it's nice to either be in the first one, or try to be the best. So it's those two things, and I think Decentraland at least gets one of them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
Decentraland is a pretty ambitious and incredible project. I like to think a lot of
Mhm.
this stuff is very much a self-fulfilling kind of simulation. Whenever whenever I look at this stuff,
Mhm. Mhm.
like
Mhm.
Elon Musk's theory that we're living in a simulation, and then all of these
Yep.
beautiful metaverses come out, and it's
Mhm.
just this kind of
Yeah.
mind-bending.
No, no, very true, right? If you take any city, it's just a meme, right? Like the meme is repeating itself. We
Hmm.
all go visit these cities, understand how these cities came into came into existence, and we go to another city and do the same. And that's what we are doing with the metaverse. Like, people like to visit and have fun, but someone has to build it, right? And if no one builds it, it's not there. But if someone builds it, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. It's now there, right?
Hmm.
So that's how every city is. So I think Decentraland is going to be the same thing, and we'll be part of building it.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. So the land sale is kind of that initial taste, that initial hook that you really got involved in NFTs. What brought you into the Beeple relationship? Kind of fast forwarding all the way to where we're at now.
Mm.
what got you into deciding to do B20, and how did you initially kind of strike up the conversation with people?
Sure. So after the land sale, for a while, there's a lot of story in the middle, right? Like, but we I don't want to go too much into the details, but I've been looking at other collectibles, art, and we've been buying a bunch of stuff. And I started working with Tubadur, and I thought, okay, I'll consolidate all my NFTs into them, and that's how we founded Metapurse. But one thing that was still making me think a lot was like, okay, I'm buying all these NFTs as a collector. I know that it might be more valuable in the future, but is that the only reason why I'm doing this, right? And what really excited me was, we had access, like NFTs where, access to great artists. So if you go into Decentraland and CryptoVoxel and try building something, right? Like you put the bricks together, you put something together, or if you want to draw something, you try doing it on Illustrator or something, and what you'll quickly understand that, like, not everyone is good at everything, right? And what crypto and NFT especially is giving us, NFT art is giving us, is access to awesome artists. So it could be artists who do visual art, it could be music, it could be 3D builds, so much. So there are so many people who have walked into this area now. And what I was thinking was, the great opportunity here is not to just collect these NFTs and put it in a wallet, but why not bring artists together? Not Instead of buying one NFT from one person, why not bring a builder who can do a 3D gallery, um, and we can take people's art and put it into it, and now it's an awesome gallery, right? Like, some people have built galleries separately, people have hosted uh, people's art separately, but when we combine, there is magic, and when we add music to it, there is more magic. So that's how I thought about it. So I started thinking about it as a production, where my responsibility is to understand the landscape right now. Who are the best artists? Who's doing what? And then bringing all of them together. Have a star, have a piece, like how we do a movie, right? Like, we always need a star in it, but there are so many other technicians who have to come into place, so that the star really shines.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we did with people. So once I understood that people is the star, I had this idea of, okay, let's try to do something huge about it. And I started talking to Tubadur about this idea, and he immediately got the idea, and he started convincing me that we should definitely do it. So I was like, okay, very confident, and we jumped into it. We actually had a great strategy to buy up all the pieces. It became part of the story, right? And then we brought together all the other artists and started building this awesome gallery, and that's how everything came into shape.
I love that. Treating it like a movie
Yeah.
set, where as long as you have the star, you can really build this infrastructure around the star and build the story arc and everything around having the star. But once you had that person or that entity, you can
Mm.
really take that and run with it. So what were
Yeah.
some of the companies, obviously, as a co-founder of Grow Your Base, I know that you worked with us very closely on it, but what were some of the rock stars that happened and operated in the background that you could really kind of share with everybody?
Sure. That's one thing I'm very proud of, right? And when we built the gallery, that was one of my biggest asks from the designer. So we built a room inside the gallery where we have the credits, right? Like, we've listed everyone who contributed to the project, and there are 27 people who contributed to this project. So there is people who's the main artist, and then there was voxel architects. They're a team of 7 people, 6 or 7, I forget, led by Leandro, who did the design of the builds and then built the actual structures across three, actually four metaverses, but we could not include Sandbox at the last moment. But we did proper builds in across three metaverses. So Somnium, Decentraland, and CryptoVoxel. So they did the build there. Music was done by Blau. He did the soundscape and also performed the set at the opening event Metapalooza. And Metacast, they are a collective of people who do content and promotions. They did a whole they created the narrative, right? Like I had this idea, but it was not totally well formed. So they helped us create the narrative, and they got us in front of a lot of people. So they did all those things. So it's like in a movie, they if it was a movie, they did the promotions, right? And Whale Street, team led by V, they did a custom smart contract design where they did a bundling and the logic behind fractionization and the walls to go with it. And Quantstamp did the audit for the smart contracts. We also had the team of visual artists who did the visual design, Preveka and a bunch of guys who worked with him. So yeah, it was, and obviously GYB who helped us with the tokenomics and bringing in influential. Influential people so that it can reach more eyes and a whole huge community of people who now can enjoy B20. So yeah, it's a huge team, a rock star, the best team I could get. So it was an awesome experience.
Yeah, and I love that you brought together all these people. Like that's the sign of, everybody coming together because everybody knew it was going to be historic. I mean, 27 people all working together to really promote this and get this out there. It's pretty fantastic.
Yeah.
So we've gone over a lot in this for sure. In terms of the utility of B20, can you just break that down really quickly for people so that we can get a sense for what the utility is and what B20 actually is?
Actually, one thing I want to make very clear with this kind of experiment that I'm doing is it's also an artistic experiment for myself and everyone who's involved in the project. So from the start, I've been pitching this not as a social token, not as a governance token, not even as a utility token. The whole idea of B20 is to create something that's not possible in the real world today. So if you think about what B20 is, the equivalent in the real world would be someone buying up the best art, uh, best pieces of art done by the best artist, and then buying the best piece of land, say imagine downtown New York or downtown Singapore, and then having the best architect design and build an awesome gallery, and then hanging all these art inside these galleries, and then taking this whole thing, the land, the builds, the building itself, and the art all together, and then sharing that ownership with someone. And we did that without having a lawyer, without having an accountant, right? Like all on chain, and no one to trust anyone. This is a success story of smart contracts, and these are all contractual. That's the beauty of it, and that's the whole experiment. The art side of it comes because it's an experiment of taking technology and totally cutting out the traditional enforcers and the regulators and the lawyers who'd actually, if you do something like this, 20-30% of all the profits would be siphoned away by all these middlemen who are working on red tapes and paperwork. So without all of that, this was possible. And that's why B20 is interesting, because it gives you the direct ownership of the most awesome NFT. It's the most awesome artwork, and it also gives you exposure to the best parcels in CV, in Somnium. In Somnium, it's the middle of the island. In CV, it's in Frankfurt. In Decentraland, it's in the middle of two awesome, big, huge districts where the value of those land that we purchased was upside of $100,000. So an individual might not be able to afford it right now. It's already up there, but buying a piece of B20 means that you get exposure to all of this, and that's it, right? Like we didn't really go into thinking about a token where there's utility or something. It's just plain ownership, a share in the ownership of all these underlying assets. And at some point, in 15-20 days, we are going to also have the buyout process where some person, some whale in the future could just come in and say, we'll have a minimum bid, say of around $12 million or something, where he can bid for $12 million, and if no one else is going to take that bid out, or if the community also can come together and stop the bid, that's also an option. But if no one stops that, he can actually take over the whole vault, the whole bundle, and those $12 million will be distributed among all the B20 holders. So that means that it's a direct exposure to the vault and the ownership, and the art inside it. So it's not a social token. You own the art, and that's the innovation here.
Yeah, yeah, and I've talked to Tubador in the past actually about, my mom is a visual artist. She's been a visual artist all my life with painting, and the intent is always so important. The intent of an artist's original piece that they are selling to someone. If somebody makes a digital rendering of it or something like that, and they're selling it on a different market, the intent isn't there, and the digital ownership, like having full true ownership that is intended by the artist of a one of one or one of two, however many mints there are, is a very special thing that has been captured with what you guys have done with B20. I think, with working directly with the artist, he knows this is how many are out there. He knows this is, where they're going. He can see on chain. And I think it captures something that's never been captured before, which is the true original piece is being tracked openly. And I think that's a very special innovation.
And if you think about the project itself, when there is around, like, say at this point it's valued around like what, 50 cents or something, a B20, which puts the whole project at $5 million, right? Like, this is a huge achievement if you think about it. Like, it's just everything here is just virtual, but because of that much of effort and intent, as you said, of all these artists, it's not just people, right? Like, it's everyone who came into this project that made this a success. And I'm very happy to see that it's having such a beautiful reception, and so much love from people. Over 560 people now have B20 tokens, and I'm very happy about that.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, we've covered a ton on this episode, and we got deep on your background, on what led you to going from the living fully on crypto for a while, and traveling around all the way to starting B20. Where can people go and learn more about B20 as a fund, as a production house? Where can they go and learn more?
Sure. So our website is metapurse.fund, metapurse.fund, and that will have information about the fund itself. And if you go to b20.metapurse.fund, you'll have all the information about B20. You'll see links to the galleries. You can, if anyone has still not visited the galleries, you should know that it's free, it's open, anyone can just visit it, look at all these art pieces, and you should experience it for sure. I'm a huge fan of what's been built in Decentraland, so make sure that you don't miss that. So that's one thing I want to say. And we run a Tubador is very good with words, so you might be interested in reading the newsletter that comes out. It's called the Metapurser. Metapurser.substack.com is where you'd be able to sign up for that, and even read all those articles we published during the launch of B20. So that's one place. Twitter is a great place for you to follow Metapurse. So that'll be at Metapurse. I'll be at Metakovan, and Tubador at Tubador. So yeah, that's probably everywhere.
Awesome. Well, wherever you guys are listening to this, the links will be in the descriptions below. All links to the Crypto Voxels event that B20 had will be there, and you guys can go and check it out for yourself. But thank you so much for coming on the show, Metakovan, and sharing your story. I know a lot of people out there were really interested after this huge event took place, but thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks a lot, Steve. I enjoyed it was very relaxing. You're a very nice host. Thank you for having me.
That is it for my interview with Metakovan. He's a fantastic guy. It was a lot of fun to sit down and go through his story and learn more about him in terms of why he decided to do this huge event, working with 27 of the best people in the NFT space. And all the links will be in the description below to not only the B20 collection and the token and the bundle on OpenSea and everything, but also the projects that collaborated here. I really wanted to highlight these rock stars like Token Smart and Voxel Architects. A lot of these companies are pretty phenomenal, and I really like the idea that we can all work together to promote the rock stars in the space, really highlight the people that are moving the needle here. And that's something that I believe that Metakovan has done by doing this huge event. He's really highlighted the most talented builders in the space, in my opinion. And these are people that are working tirelessly to move the needle. And I definitely wanted to leave the link to their projects in the description below. So be sure to go check them out, show them some love. And that is it for this episode of Hack Crypto. Smash a like if you like it. And don't forget to be subscribed. And I'll see you on the next episode of Hack Crypto.